Thanks for joining us today. Today we're here with Giordanengo. He began building his career in ecological restoration throughout the Western US since 2000, but his dedication to conservation goes back further. While studying business in 1988, John became intrigued by a universal challenge: preserving Earth's ecosystems while meeting humanity's economic needs. Inspired by the growing protests against globalization and then the 2000 Great Recession, he began the research and writing of ecosystems as models for restoring our economies. This work integrates 30 years of research and practice in ecology, business, and economics, which indicates that the same drivers of the health and resilience of ecosystems also governs our economies. After sharing his passion for ecological restoration with hundreds of audiences across the Americas, John turned his attention to ecosystems as a model to economic restoration. This work has led him to believe that not only do ecosystems and economies share the same structure, but these two complex global systems are now intertwined, such that the fate of one now depends on the health of another, and the restoration of one will provide enduring benefits for the other. Ecosystems as models to restoring our economies has received great praise. Kingsley Dixon, the vice chair of the Global Board of Directors for the Society for Ecological Restoration, wrote, "Giordanengo provides a comprehensive synthesis of ecological foundations and economic structure, sorely lacking in our quest to develop sustainable economies in the face of growing economic and environmental turmoil. From the roots of ecological restoration, this book delivers a clear path to restoring the American economy in a way that speaks in a universal language to policymakers, business owners, academics, and the next generation. The identification of three drivers of highly resilient and productive economies and ecosystems: diversity, energy, and trade, is perhaps the most important insight to the resolving growing tensions between society, nature, and the global market economy. This book provides hope for species, ecosystems, and the planet." John, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome, Maggie. Thank you.
We look forward so much to your upcoming talk about your new book, Ecosystems as Models for Restoring Our Economies. So tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in South San Francisco, of all places. And I think a really important part of my childhood was walking the remaining small streams in an urban area and finding any little tidbit of life remaining. Trying to find those garter snakes, chasing the frogs that were eating the bugs on the leaves in the creek outside of my school. And that was sort of where I grew up, this confluence of urban living and nature.
Oh, that's so great. Where do you spend your time these days?
Well, I spend a lot of time doing ecological restoration throughout Colorado and southern Wyoming. So anywhere from the alpine environments of Colorado down to the plains, working with a great, wonderful group of folks doing ecological restoration throughout the Rocky Mountains.
So tell us, what inspired you to write this book?
Good question. What most folks don't know about my background is I started studying business before studying ecology. And so as a student back in the late 80s, after taking a few economics classes, I took my first ecology class, and I had this very odd realization that there was some overlap between those two systems. But I had no idea what it was, nor did any advisors I was working with at the time. And time went by. I worked in the conservation field for about 7 years doing recycling and household hazardous waste and composting programs, and then decided to come back to study ecology, and specifically restoration ecology formally. And it always begged the question, what is it? How can we help our economy be structured and function better so that we're not fighting to implement these most important social and environmental programs that are highly valued by anybody living on the earth? What does that economy look like? As I gained more experience in restoration ecology, and then inspired by the growing global protests around the turn of the century, even before then, and then the recession of 2007, I decided to sit down and actually start doing some deeper research and writing of this book. And it's been about 12 years now in the process.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing your mind with us. Now, I know that you've done other kinds of writing. And so can you talk to us about how this, like writing a book, is different from writing government white papers or peer-reviewed literature?
Yeah, boy, what's a great question. And I must admit, I've been struggling with identifying well the audience for this book, because as some reviewers have written, it does speak to a broad audience of conservatives, liberals, centrists, people of all different economic backgrounds, because our economy, it affects us all. And so, yes, a lot of my background has been more scientific writing and things. And so, yeah, this book, as one reviewer wrote, really does speak well to a general audience. And I've really spent a lot of time trying to synthesize what can seem like a very scary and off-putting subject, economics, and wrapping it through a lens that we all know well. We know ecosystems, we know nature. Right? We grow up in nature, we've evolved under this umbrella of nature, right? Students that go through school these days, they learn about ecology long before I did growing up. And so, yeah, telling the story through nature really helps to connect the audience with the subject matter, which is important. So again, I think what was different is really trying to connect with that audience and helping, writing this in a way that is easy to digest and follow, because our ecosystems and our economies are so complex, and we are linear thinkers as human beings. So really trying to tell this story in a motivating, captivating way is what I aspire to do in this book.
Well, thank you. And now, if you could mail 3 copies and guarantee that these people would read your book, who would you mail these copies to?
Well, I would say you. So you, Maggie, and anybody watching. Again,
I already ordered a copy, I will say.
Yeah, again, our economies affect us all, and change is going to be forged by everybody from the bottom up, mostly. That said, the introduction of the book, I'll do a little reading later, was inspired by Professor Johnson of MIT, who had this really powerful way to describe kind of the challenges of our current economic model, and saying we need what we call the germ theory of our economy. What is it that's actually failing? And he didn't have an answer at the time, and so I'd love to send a copy to him and get his response. There are also some wonderful ecologists, great ecological thinkers globally, such as E.O. Wilson and others. Would be great to get this copy into to get their perspective. One of the beautiful things about this, if we do believe that ecosystems and economies share the same structure, one of the inspirational moments for me in the writing of this book was actually learning new insights into ecology through the lens of economics. And so I feel like through this process, I've learned more about ecology, and I'd love to share that with others.
Would you like to read a passage for us?
Sure. At the onset of the 2007 Great Recession, Professor Johnson of MIT revealed a powerful metaphor at an annual meeting of the American Economics Association. Johnson was highlighting the failure of existing economic models and noted that sustained progress in health and sanitation came only after society had discovered how diseases work, what has become known as the germ theory of disease. In economics, Johnson professed, we failed to make meaningful progress, for we have yet to discover its germ theory of disease. This model of global market capitalism, while growing unprecedented levels of wealth for some, is built upon a faulty structure. This faulty structure is akin to a disease, placing every human at risk of supply chain disruptions, turbulent energy markets, political uncertainties, among trading partners, and a litany of social and environmental impacts. Hanging in the balance is the security, health, and prosperity of people across the world, the wholeness of our communities, and the ecosystems upon which we rely. Protests against globalization have intensified over the last half century. And in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, another wave of public concerns have arisen, questioning the logic of an economy built upon eternal global market expansion. To be clear, the virus did not cause the subsequent economic calamity. The virus merely highlighted the cracks in our economic foundations.
Thanks, John. That was a great lead. I hope everyone goes and finds your book right now. And I know that they can get it at the Colorado Native Plant Society bookstore. Where else can they get it?
Yes, we are selling it through our own website, distributed by Alaterra, and that website is growingin.org. We're also working to get it through Amazon's KDP delivery method, which has a much broader audience than we can garner ourselves.
Thank you so much, John. I look forward to your upcoming talk. And listeners, please visit the Colorado Native Plant Society website for more information about how you can register for John's talk and other upcoming talks. The website is conps.org.
Thanks so much, Maggie.
Thanks, John.
Take care. Happy reading, everybody.